Welcome to Social Steps, a series of conversations with people around the world who are creating positive change and social impact. The idea of social business became popular thanks to Muhammad Yunus's work, the economist who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006 for his work to create economic and social development from below. To speak about this interesting topic, I invited Carolina Almeida Cruz, who is joining us from Portugal. Carolina has extended experience in social business. In 2010, she went to Nepal, Tibet, and India to work and collaborate with social impact companies. This experience inspired her to co-found Sapana, an NGO organization that works on the development and sustainability of human beings. In 2021, Carolina was the Portuguese Tech Award Winner in the category Sustainability and Climate Change. She is currently developing her research on human rights and leading her company Seymour. In this episode, Carolina tells us about her inspiring experiences as a social entrepreneur and fascinating insights for those who want to start a social enterprise. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to this podcast on your favorite streaming platform. Finally, I want to thank Francisca Sassetti, who was my first guest on this podcast and made this great conversation possible. Carolina, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to talk to you about your great experiences in Portugal and other countries around the world. So, some questions to begin our conversation. Where are you from and what and where did you study? How did you become interested in working in this field in social business?
Okay, thank you so much, Luis, and thank you for this opportunity. So basically, I'm based in Lisbon, Portugal. Regarding what I've studied, I started to study here in Portugal as well, psychology, and afterwards I studied management and financials and all that things that I would love to share with you. Nowadays, I'm completely focused on responsible business, sustainability, business and human rights. So the fact that each of us should behave, should choose if we can to between A and B, and A being the best version of a business, B being the version that we know of a business, and basically has been that path that I've been doing.
One thing that it's fascinating about your path as a person is the fact you already traveled to
Mhm,
several countries around the world. So,
mhm.
how this experience, when I say experience, I am referring to this experience to meet different cultures. So, how this experience has shaped you?
I think, thank you so much for that question. I think it's one of the things that I came across during my youth, and since I was quite honestly young. I'm quite privileged and blessed in the sense of I have a family that they allowed me to travel, and travel in two ways. So the first one is by plane, by boat, traveling around the globe, as you mentioned, and the second part is, and the second axis is reading books, the right books, listen to the right music. And when I'm saying right, is music that challenge your ears, that challenge your way of thinking, as writers who challenge your thoughts and your mindset. So, regarding the one that you mentioned around the globe and around the world, the countries that I've traveled, I think I'm quite a mingler. So, I mingle in. I mingle with people. I mingle because I really want to sit on the table, in the right one, on the floor. I want to be next to them. I've never wanted to travel just because, just normally I don't travel to relax. I travel to immerse myself, to understand where that person comes from. Do you know, Luis? Um, if I would have to choose one word for me personally, in the way that traveling has shaped me, is like the fact that I think you become more uh, able to put everything in perspective. So you become humble. You do not have a choice. You have to understand that the context completely segregates everyone's choices and possibilities. And that has been one of the biggest learnings, because when you travel to India, when you travel to Nepal, when you travel to Iran, when you travel to Morocco, Mauritania, countries like that, where women, for example, and I'm a woman, where women are different from myself, just because they were brought up in a different context and country and culture and tradition and different laws, if we could call that way. I think you realize that each of us, if we are able to, we need to have a voice. Look the situation that we are living in Afghanistan, in Kabul. A lot of women are now going to delete the last 20 years of their lives, and they are going to realize they know already, they knew already, but they are now living an experience of the 15th century. So when you travel, you get close to the topics, to the subjects, to the issues. You have the ability to speak about different emotions and different feelings, even. And one of the things that you realize as well is love, for example, is a common language, and you do not need to speak the language, the local one. You just have to pay attention. You just have to sit and listen, and active listening, without our judgmental mindset and way of living, because we were used to it. And I think that's the beauty of traveling. You just are able to take all your makeup. You just become who you are, and if you are able to do so, you are able to become a traveler instead of a tourist, and that's beautiful.
It's fascinating to hear your experiences, and I think we should schedule another episode to talk about your experiences in other countries, because I think the same thing when it comes to traveling to other countries. What is a typical day for you, and how do you organize your routine?
Thank you so much for that. And we both know Francisca. So she's the example and the role model of having a beautiful routine. Okay, I'm the opposite. Okay, I'm the opposite. I'm a mess. I'm completely a mess in the sense of I have things and, I would say, activities and initiatives that I want to do during that day. But honestly, there are a lot of things that I procrastinate, that I don't want to do it, that I'm too lazy to do so. And so I would say that my common ground nowadays, daily basis, is I need to do sport daily basis. When I say sports, I'm saying walking, Pilates, um, yeah, walking, Pilates, and my personal trainer, if I have the possibility to do a session with him. And at the same time, weekly basis, for example, I have to read, and I have to have my time for self love and self care. And those two things are completely mandatory for my balance. At the same time, I have a lot of work to do. So I'm working nowadays as a consultant, and I do strategic consultancy for companies with the core mindset of how can I translate sustainability into their businesses, so into my clients' businesses. And at the same time, I'm doing my PhD, and at the same time, I'm teaching. So those three things are the ones that I would say that allow you to realize that if you have discipline and if you become um, smart using your time, you are and you become much more efficient. Luis, honestly, for myself, it's not an easy task, but it's something that as much work as I have, better I am managing my time. And this is really cool. So when people and just a short story that I want to share with you, one of the works that I've done for the last 8 years was working with inmates, so basically within prisons. And one of the guys that we were empowering, he told me, Carolina, do you know what? Every single person is always complaining about time. And I have, as an inmate, I have too much time. And I think that's the beauty of context. And that's at the same time, the surprising lesson that you might have when you speak with people that live exactly in the same city as you, but in the different contexts. For example, in a prison versus not in a prison. And when you speak with a man like that, and he was incredibly smart, he told me, how do you use, waste, and fulfill your time? How you recycle your time? How you make your time worth it? And I think that question for me was mind blowing, because he was complaining about having too much time, but at the same time he was telling me, don't waste it. That's a gift that you have. So use it, invest, make it make it worth. And I think studying for myself, studying for others, studying, learning, communicating with human beings as yourself, um, learning from one another, I think that investment makes your time energy. And I think that's a very smart choice for ourselves, is when you translate your time into energy. And for myself, I realized that was passing time with my family, self-love slash self-care, um, studying, sharing knowledge, because I do not teach, I share, and working in something that resonates with my soul.
There is a curious movie about time. I forgot the name in English. Uh, yes, I forgot that. But
With Justin Timberlake.
yes, it's a movie with Justin Timberlake where time literally costs actually money is time. So, for example, some
Something like
people,
that.
yes, the billionaires are actually people who has one of million years to live. So I think even though it's a dystopian movie like Blade Runner and this kind of movies, I think it's a interesting story to think about your society and especially how we are dealing with your lives. And
Mhm.
Carolina, you mentioned about your PhD degree. So, are you investigating something related to social business? And if so, or well, could you tell us about your investigations?
So my PhD is fundamentally focused on the Universal Human Rights Declaration, published in 1947, and to understand the gaps between then and now, and the fact that, in my opinion, there are things that should be included in that universal declaration. So basically, for example, when we are talking about the access to education, you should include access to connectivity for sure. So it's about human rights, it's about education, and it's about that beautiful, that I love, tagline from United Nations, leave no one behind. Because there's something which that you realize, and we do not need, and we didn't need for sure the COVID, but we needed to understand that when we are talking about education, we are surely talking about resources and how each of us have resources to um, be able to choose, because people like yourself that you are a role model, you understand what I mean. When we are talking about resources, we are not talking about money only, we are talking about the structure, the foundations that you were brought up to. And when we are talking about education nowadays, you have to consider connectivity, and connectivity means internet, power, access to internet, because you can have it but it's not strong enough, so you cannot use it. So the internet needs to be efficient, and at the same time you need to be connected, and being connected, it means that you are able to turn on and off your ability to learn. And that's really challenging, because we are talking about um, a number, like the last numbers that I've seen and that I read were about 44 million people with less than 14 years old that did not have access to education because they didn't have access to connectivity, so they were completely unconnected. And that's the reason as well that I belong to this advisory board slash group of thinkers of this incredible organization that is based in UK, the Unconnected, managed by Mia and Andrew, and it's incredible the work they are doing around the globe. So people that, for example, Luis, honestly, you should interview because they are incredible. And so this is it. This is my this is my thesis, and at the same time, I'm truly focused on responsible businesses and how you can evaluate, diagnose responsible business using ESG, environmental, social, and governance criteria. And that has been my research for the last 12 years.
And Carolina, what are joys and pains of being a social entrepreneur? And what do you like, and which are the most challenging things about working in your field?
Thank you, Luis. I would say, my husband tells me normally that I'm normally happy. And I'm quite happy, And I think social entrepreneurship, it was much harder 12 years ago in Portugal because people wouldn't understand you. But nowadays, everyone understands social entrepreneurship. Everyone understands when you're talking about um, dreams but one of the things that for me the biggest I would say achievements for the last years has been the fact that it became easier to be a social entrepreneur because I'm surrounded by the right team and the right people, and that was the biggest pain for me. The thing that was really painful, it was to find my tribe. You know what I mean? Because the rest, when you have the right people next to you, the right peers, people who challenge, who mentor you, you are able of doing anything and everything. Working in my field, I every day I feel that I'm changing the world. So I think that's the honestly, I'm not Luis. I'm not changing anything, but just the fact that I believe that I am, you cannot imagine how powerful I feel with it. It's incredible. I feel so empowered, just because I feel that I'm giving, sharing, and receiving much more than I give.
It's definitely an interesting perspective, and again, some fascinating words. And what is the biggest myth or misconception about your work and within our area of expertise? And may you clarify it?
Okay, thank you, Luis. So I would say that the biggest one is the fact that people think that sustainability is Om Shanti Kumbaya, and it's not Om Shanti. It's quite challenging to understand sustainability in the sense of nowadays everyone talks about it, but when you think about sustainability, you're thinking about um, a, a lot of topics and subjects at the same time that are completely intertwined. Let me tell you. So when you're talking about sustainability, you're talking about accounting, you're talking about economics, you're talking about social sciences, you're talking about biology, anthropology. So you're talking about every single area of a society, and that's the beauty of sustainability, because you will never learn enough. You will never be good enough. At the same time, when you're talking about sustainability, and as myself that I'm working in that area, I need to be able to translate it and to simplify the message, because if you do not do, you do not know enough, you do not know in depth. And that's the thing, to I think the expertise, the area of expertise that I think that I really want to be in is sustainability and responsible businesses. But for that to happen, I think I need to live another life. So let me tell you that what I'm trying to become, what I'm trying to be, is trying to pass my message as simple as I can. And when my grandpa, with 94 years old, understands my message, that will be fascinating. And I think that's a beautiful path to cross and to walk by and through.
It's very curious you mentioned this point, Carolina, because I have another podcast, and well, at the beginning of this podcast, I thought I would only speak with biologists, environmental sociologists, environmental engineers. But of course,
Yeah.
I spoke with people from these areas, but I am also speaking with data analysis, people who work in agriculture and other sectors of the economy and science as well.
And Luis, just let me add something. And this honestly is so natural, When you're talking about sustainability, you're talking about agriculture, you're talking about the soil and the earth, you're talking about how you can use and optimize resources without wasting them. Using, it's not the same thing. You're just, and I think when you talk about resources, I'm talking as well about ourselves as humans. I'm talking about um, uh, all the fruit and veggies. I'm talking about the ability to use resources efficiently and optimize all the supply chain, and listen to the people that we've been not listening. I give an example. We should sit with farmers, with painters. We should sit with artists. We should understand what they think about sustainability, because that's such a beautiful and big umbrella. But if we sit with them, we understand that maybe it's much more simple than we believe that it is. Because it's not about climate, it's much more than that. It's the roots that allow us to speak about climate change. And the roots, for example, if you sit and if you think, it's about the soil. So it's about earth, water, wind, sun. Um, and I think that's the beauty of it, in my opinion.
And Carolina, you founded Sapana. Please correct my pronunciation. It's Sapana?
Sapana,
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, perfect. So it's a fascinating company. So may you tell us about your experiences at Sapana, what you do, what your team does?
So basically, Luis, I'm nowadays not. I'm not working at Sapana. I just belong to the advisory board. I've co-founded Sapana with three other people, and nowadays is being managed by Karina Abreu. She's incredible. And Sapana is a nonprofit that behaves as an impact driven organization, and it's completely focused on empowering each individual despite their context. And nowadays, Sapana is really focused on youngsters and inmates, and it's creating an impact incredible through, for example, social impact bonds. So basically, using the possibilities that you have nowadays from private investors, the needs of our government and our expertise as a nonprofit and as a team of experts empowering people to be included in society and to find a job and to be completely self-sustainable. So I would say that Sapana nowadays has become, in the last 10 years almost, a role model in certain topics. And I would choose mainly justice, youth, and with the main focus on translating, again, translating what is real and the necessities and the needs that each of them, those each people from that target group has. And I think Sapana is able to translate and to make it easy to get to all stakeholders, and that's really important. And I think Sapana means dream, and has been a dream for myself as a woman and for a lot of people. I truly believe in that. I'm so deeply proud of the work that my team, that is not my team anymore, but I truly believe in that way, that they are still have been doing. It's incredible, incredible.
May you tell to your listeners in which projects are you involved, Carolina? Currently involved?
Okay, so basically, from January onwards this year, so started in January 2021, we've launched a B Corp. So my company is basically a pending B Corp, but it's going to be a B Corp. It is in the process for it, and it's a consultancy company. Is a social driven company that is completely focused on translating sustainability into business. How? Through consultancy for strategy and for business of my clients. And my clients can be a council, can be a public entity, or a private one. So no problem. How do we do it? So basically, we are a consultancy firm. We diagnose, and we have an algorithm based in business analytics, which evaluates the level of maturity, environmental, social, and governance, so ESG. And we implement, we are like a one stop shop. We implement initiatives to increase the level of maturity of our clients. And that has been really, really interesting. Then we do training, but our focus is really consultancy. I would say 90% of our work is consultancy for companies who are willing to become more conscious and practical and real in sustainability.
Several companies are increasingly concerned about social and environmental issues. Is there a difference in the professionals' perception towards social business now than 10 years ago? And may you explain it?
Of course, Luis. And I think the main reason why is because of legislation. You have nowadays a group of, you have three things. Let me try to explain. So the first one, when we are talking about companies who are worried or who are conscious or aware of these topics as uh, social and environmental practices, we are talking about companies who understood the peer pressure, and the peer pressure can happen, for example, from their competitors, but as well from consumers and clients. And that's really interesting because I think one of the things that is happening nowadays is you have the new generation, I would say millennial and the Z generation, who are increasingly demanding that you are a company that makes business doing no harm. And that's incredible. The second part is how can we continue to be passive regarding the topics that all of us we can see. It's like doesn't make any sense, when you're talking about ESG and you are talking about environmental, we are talking about biodiversity, you're talking about waste, resources, climate change for sure. But when we are talking about social, you're talking about employees, you're talking about shareholders, suppliers, clients and consumers and business partners. So you're talking about diversity, you're talking about belonging, you're talking about inclusion, you're talking about the business and human rights, you're talking about modern slavery, you're talking about every single item that allows your company to behave and to increase or not their reputation. And the third topic is law. So every single country that is, for example, as US, Canada, UK, so countries that are English speakers and natives, for example, New Zealand, Australia, they have this pressure to fulfill a lot of legislations because they would, for sure, the companies would have a huge penalty. And that's the definition of hard law. And then you have the soft law, as Latin countries, for example, as Portugal, that you do not have so many laws that make businessmen and women to be obligated to fulfill and to understand the consequences of not of not becoming a responsible business. And that's the thing. So nowadays, what happened in the last 10 years, so you have SDGs completely assumed and implemented. So you have sustainable development goals, you have 17. For the first time in history, Luis, you have 17 goals that are completely sustained in the 30 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So business owners have the ability to fulfill a group of metrics and tangible metrics that are going to be completely aligned with 30 articles of human rights. So then we have a possibility. And then you have the second part, that you have the consumer. And the consumer is more informed. You have the social network. So you have the ability to inform, to pressure, to peer pressure, to influence, to connect the dots. And consumers know much more than a lot of business owners. So you have to respect them and you have to pay attention because they have the ability to cancel your business. And that's incredible. And then you have the third thing, that is legislation. So you have to fulfill, because if you do not do, you are going to go to the public as a company which is not being respectful of humans, of humankind. And that's incredible, Luis. So you have reputation, you have transparency, and then just to close and to be the glue, the G, the governance, is the glue. So when companies translate, when they communicate their internal, I would say, initiatives and politics and guidelines to themselves, to their employees, and afterwards to the different stakeholders, that's incredible. Because public have a word to say. But the public, the audience, the society has the power to say you're not behaving correctly, or you are saying a thing that you do not agree, that you do not believe, or that you are judging something, but you do exactly the same. So walk the talk is nowadays something that the consumers, clients, are increasingly demanding. And that's incredible. I'm so proud of our generation.
Carolina, which books, documentaries, animations, and/or movies inspire you to work as a social entrepreneur, and why?
I would say that I would say any book that allows you to think about humankind. And that can be Tolstoy or Huxley or Kant or Nietzsche, or any book from Yunus. But honestly, for me, Luis, were people, human stories. It was every single time about human stories. I remember one of the women that influenced me was an Egyptian one, then one woman from Morocco, and then a group of people that I've met in Maldives, and then Brazil, and then Nepal, Tibet, India, Italy, Spain. It was never about books or documentaries. It was about people stories that sat next to me. But if you would, I would be more than happy to share some books that I consider they are mandatory. If you ask me, one for myself and everyone knows from my side. It's nowadays it's Down and Out in London and Paris from Orville. It's incredible. How a person put himself in a situation that is a homeless in London and in Paris. And I think that book is one of the best books that I've ever read. But I have so many. I'm reading now Yusra. I'm reading now Yeonmi Park. It's incredible. Her story from North Korea is such a beautiful example, and at the same time, it's a story about love, and it's the definition of love and freedom, and the lack of both. There's something that for myself has been a constant is when you read, for example, Kaji Murat from Tolstoy, is a book that I've never forget. It changed me as a woman, but as well, Levi. It's incredible. So there are so many books that I would recommend, documentaries for sure. But honestly, sit, listen, and pay attention. When you ask to a person if she or him or he, if they are okay, and you do not want to hear the answer, their reply, that shows a lot about yourself. So pay attention, because if you do so, you will find for sure a challenge, a problem, a social problem that you might be useful to solve. It's so simple. We do not need anyone to tell us how to behave, but we surely need to behave.
I think it's the best part about. Personally, I like to listen TED talks. And by the way, for your listeners, Carolina already presented a TEDx, so I think it's a great way to listen, especially during we are recording this podcast during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, unfortunately, traveling to other countries or uh, not exactly not only traveling to other countries, but travel to have this more personal, warm experiences is difficult. So I think that talks is a good way to listen, like real stories about inspiring people who sometimes are not famous but are creating a great social impact in the society. And let's imagine we have a listener who wants to start social business. Which skills, books, and when I say books, I am referring to either academic or fiction, movies and/or documentaries. Would you recommend to that person?
I would say that that person should definitely read, for example, Three World Zero and Leaving Microsoft to Change the World. So those two books are really cool to read, and they are really easy. Another thing is I would recommend that person to sit with people who already launched social businesses, because we a lot of things that we learn for sure come from books, huh? And myself, damn, I love it. But you need to listen to people who already crossed that path, and make your own your experience for sure, but just listen, because there are a lot of learning from listen to others. My grandma used to say, a smart person is the one who does not repeat the one's mistakes, and I completely agree. If you have the ability to understand and to learn from people, and you do not need to fall on those mistakes again, or bad uh, things that happen to each of us, of course you learn, but if you have the ability to learn without falling there, it's really cool. Documentaries, very good. There are a lot of Netflix and Prime Video if you have the possibility to do so. And some movies that I can recommend as well. I'm thinking about some movies that were incredible, special for me. Um, Everyone knows who knows me. Dead Poet Society. That was one of the books that one of the movies that changed completely myself as a woman and as a learner. But I would say that I can recommend you some that I'm thinking. You have some in Netflix that I'm thinking, like the boy, and I cannot remember, with the wind. And that's beautiful. I will send you, Lish, just for you to share. um, and regarding um, documentaries and some academics, I would suggest that you start reading some white papers that Shoka Skull Foundation they published. They are really good, and Ellen MacArthur as well. They are incredible. So I would recommend those trees just for you to start. And whatever you need, Luis, honestly, if that person, if that listener resonates with what I've been here sharing, you can give my contact. If I able to be useful to that person, that's for sure.
Thank you so much, Carolina. Um, and my last question, do you have any final message for those who want to create positive social change?
Yeah, just I would say go. Listen, pay attention, absorb everything that you can. Um, and it's going to be challenging, but remember something that at least for me, was mind blowing. Every single thing that you would create that makes people to realize that they do not understand, that doesn't mean that you are in the wrong path. The only thing that you need to pay attention is if you are using the right words to pass the message, because I think that's the beauty of it. A lot of people do not understand what you start and why you are starting that path. But when you do so, and when you start to have a group of people validating what you are doing, people will start to respect you, because that's how humans behave. You know, anything that is strange, that we do not understand, we do not comprehend, we will reject. But when people, a group of people, start to realizing, validating, understanding, resonating, they will empower you. And that's quite interesting. The path that you have to go through, it's a roller coaster, ups and downs, but that's part of it. And that's the beauty of it, in my opinion. You have to have the lows to respect the highs. That's for sure.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Carolina.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Recommend this podcast to your friends who are also willing to create positive change in society. If you want to listen to a podcast in Portuguese, don't forget to check Green Steps, my other podcast where I speak with leading environmentalists from Brazil. You can find the entire series of episodes on my website, luisguilhermenmel.com. Use the link I wrote in the description of this episode. Episodes are also available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Social Steps will return as soon.